A minute to the top of the hour. Good evening and many thanks for joining us. And a happy Africa Integration Day to you, all our dear viewers and all the Africans across the continent. I'm Joram Ssonko with Winnie Buyinza Nakauchi on for the sign language interpretation. First, a look at our top stories. In the headlines tonight, we look at leveraging free zones. The private sector braces to exploit special economic zones. Also, the Juba-Kampala trade standoff. South Sudan bans Uganda's inquest into crisis as 74 trucks remain impounded. Elsewhere, lessons from the Kenyan shilling crumbling. Kenya shilling plummets as Uganda's free-floating currency scales. All right, now let's get right onto it as we start off with leveraging free zones. Following an agreement between Uganda Manufacturers Association and the Uganda Free Zones Authority, growing interest now lies in how the private sector can fully utilize the export-oriented opportunities in the free zones and ports across agriculture, steel and fisheries, among other sectors. Further discussion has been on the investment climate for inclusiveness, considering incentives, industrial infrastructure, among other notables. Bronia Katosime has details.
As the private sector braces for extra opportunities in free zone space, with non-export-oriented production limited to only 20%, growing openings for private sector investment, proposed big potential for export-oriented manufacturing, as over 81% of manufacturers are constituted in the free zones, according to last year's report from the authority. In financial year 2021-2022, manufacturing activities generated the highest capital investment value, worth $519.02 million, accounting for 80.55% of total investments. This was followed by mining and quarrying activities, which generated $74.89 million at 12% of total investment. Agriculture, forestry and fishing registered $34.03 million. Transportation and storage services at $16.81 million, while administrative and support service activities registered the least capital investment at $2,480.
We have issues of water, issues of ICT backbone infrastructure for business process outsourcing and other IT-enabled services, and so many other things. The import of free zones is to make sure that the cost of production goes down, and when the cost of production goes down, it means even when you go to the market, you'll be more competitive because your pricing policy will not be a bad one. How are we going to compete with the Ghanaians who have uptime in their Tema industrial zone, Tema free zone, of 99.7% of electricity, okay, and they're not using thermal generators because it's a government policy that we shall not put thermal generators in our industrial zones, but we shall ensure that there is higher uptime. So with you buying a diesel, with you buying a generator of up to probably $100,000, how are you going to compete? So this is where free zones comes in.
While Kenya has made significant strides in export promotion through free zones, Uganda intends to learn from Nairobi's experiences and carve its own path, benchmarking on schemes, incentives and land acquisition. Collaboration between government and the private sector is the foundational element to tap into sustainable tourism, support for technology-driven startups, and a window to international markets.
Uganda came in 2014, which was over 20 years after Kenya had started implementing the legal framework. So, of course, the disadvantages sometimes you get is that by the time you start, the other competing countries in the region have already started. But also it has an advantage that it helps you to learn the best practices in implementing this zone. So the lessons we've had from Kenya has been largely on the legal framework because the current legal framework that we have also evolved into, or we are evolving into, and that is special economic zones, is a much wider scheme. So it has helped us as a country to learn from the best practices in Kenya.
So in Kenya, if they have these special economic zones, and you don't have them, you are greatly disadvantaged. Because you are in a customs union, you are in a common market. A common market means you have a customs union and the free movement of factors of production, including labor, human beings. And so that's why it is important that when we go to the community at the regional level and we agree on certain things, then we implement them.
Growing private sector investment is expected to influence numerous sector growth such as employment. In financial year 2021-2022, employment in free zones stood at 9,861, a 17.5% increase from 8,389 jobs in 2020-2021. Foreign-induced jobs added up to 7,127, accounting for 72%, while locally induced jobs amounted to 2,734, 28%.
However, from the perspective of how far it has gone till this point, a lot more information needs to be circulated within the business community. They need to be oriented more into how to use these free zones and why they could be of great use to their specific businesses. Right now, it is much more or less a guess game. But the private sector, through organizations and institutions such as the Private Sector Federation, the Uganda National Chamber of Commerce and Industries, the Uganda Manufacturers Association, need to let the business community know much more about these free zones. They do exist.
The reason why free zones are established is to ensure that we increase the market for raw materials and we increase opportunities for employment. So that gives us when they come and help us on reducing on the burden of creation of employment, we welcome them.
Investment in trade facilitation, such as infrastructure to ease transport and movement of logistics, simplifying customs, plus public-private partnerships are lined up as key areas to support investment growth for both the private sector and the free zones. Bronia Katsime, Smart 24 TV, Business Today.
All right, now elsewhere, let's look at the Juba-Kampala trade standoff. But before that, let's get more from the lessons of the Kenyan shillings crumbling. Kenya's tense economic climate, compounded by political unrest, inflation and the weak shilling, plus supply chain challenges that have influenced capital flight in the country's financial markets. Now, the fear factor has in turn crossed borders to Kampala as the Ugandan banks switch their long-term position on the Kenyan shilling. The managed flow of Nairobi's shilling as well as the Eurobond distress, among other factors, seem to be a blessing in disguise for Uganda's investment portfolio. Rona Nahabwe. Besides that, let's first of all get back to the Juba-Kampala trade standoff, as in May, 74 trucks carrying maize, wheat, among other logistics, were impounded at Elegu border en route South Sudan. Now, the standoff over quality assurance has remained unresolved to date, and Uganda's inquest into the crisis is still barred by South Sudan authorities as the products are now contraband and truck drivers' protest still unyielding. Samla Hanifa reports.
South Sudan imports most of its food from Uganda, and ever since it established a National Food and Drug Authority, it has been impounding trucks loaded with wheat, flour, sorghum and other grain products on allegations of failing to pass the test for contamination with aflatoxin. At the beginning of last month, over 60 trucks of Ugandans also fell victim despite interventions from Ugandan authorities. Trade Minister Harriet Ntabazi says the South Sudan authorities have stopped the team from Uganda to be part of the investigations, but they are doing everything possible to normalize the situation.
Our team was not allowed to enter inside because the matter was already under their republic. And they also said that they could not allow, because their national security had picked interest in that matter. So the team came back and reported. So I led another team which was going to interact with the Minister of Trade and Commerce of the Republic of South Sudan after writing to them, whom we interacted, and we found out that there were issues. The trucks themselves were 450. Other trucks had gone already allowed. Only 45 trucks had been intercepted.
On the other hand, legislators have cautioned government over failure to have a written trade policy with countries it does trade with, which is now affecting its exports. They say Ugandan exports have had quality issues with other countries for long, but government has failed to act.
We don't have a foreign policy. The foreign policy which is there is not written, because we would be having a relationship. How do we deal with Sudan? How do we deal with Kenya? How do we deal with Tanzania? How do we deal with Kenya and Rwanda? But we don't have foreign policy written. In Uganda's politics, foreign policy is imagined, is not written. So a minister will imagine that my government wants this, but it's not written. There is no reference point. That's why we have a problem with our exports and with the acceptability of our exports. Of course, when they continue refusing our exports, it will affect our balance of payment. And in the end, our businesses will go down, because if you have exported things to Sudan, they cannot allow you to bring it. If it is poisonous, they will say ban it there, because the maize is poisonous, cannot come back.
London still have a challenge to stand and command the market for East African commodities and also outside, because our relationship is politically stronger, but economically is still weak and is weakening every after day. We still have the target workers into the business chain. The business dealers, the traders are not traders, real traders, business persons, but they are dealers. They commonly work for business for today and they don't define its longer term existence. And that is the main challenge. Then we also lacking specialization into the chain of production, where we have very many traders who at the same time they are the producers, they are the farmers.
The members of parliament have also questioned the work of entities like Uganda National Bureau of Statistics and Uganda Revenue Authority, who are mandated to check these products before they leave the country to avoid such embarrassments at the region level.
I'm wondering why the maize that is full of aflatoxin and of poor quality can get exported into Sudan and also Kenya. What is National Bureau of Standards doing? What is the URA doing? Apart from licensing and scooping out a lot of money, taxes from these traders, have you guided them? Have you examined the quality of goods that is being exported into other countries? So if this is not done, then it is tarnishing the entire economy and the image of the production.
We know that as a country, we have challenges on the way we handle food, and we have up to now not yet established our own National Food and Drug Authority. There is no clear authority that handles foods. So we need to establish systems within our country to certify all foods before they are actually exported. That, for me, is the way to go. Otherwise, let us respect the laws of the country in South Sudan.
Of trade in Uganda is not given its position. Why I'm saying it is that now, when our exports are being denied, like milk, eggs, and maize, and those countries are saying there is poor quality, what you ask yourself is that our standards organization is here. UNBS, is it working? National Bureau of Standards, are they working?
According to Honorable Macho Geoffrey, it is not proper that South Sudan takes such a drastic measure, yet Uganda has already supported the country economically, socially, and politically. He says the impounded cereals are rotting as we speak, yet traders borrowed money from banks, expecting to recover it from their produce.
I strongly don't agree with the government of South Sudan, because Uganda, with our strategic position and with the goodwill of President Museveni, we have helped the government of South Sudan to feed them, to keep their refugees the fact of the matter, there are almost 2 million more refugees from Southern Sudan here. And they should remember the time when they were going through the civil war. It is Uganda that stood for them. It is very unfair for the government of Southern Sudan to impound the lorries that are carrying food that is going to their country. The food they have impounded are serious and they are rotting. And moreover, most business people got money for loans to do that cross-border trade.
Yesterday, Ugandan truck drivers had a peaceful demonstration at the Elegu border demanding the release of their trucks as well as their colleagues who were arrested along with these trucks. Samlanifa, Smart 24 TV, Business Today.
All right, now moving further, demand is redefining market trends across all sectors. And in the telecoms, Airtel Uganda has introduced the Voice over LTE, a communication standard evolving with generation shifts, integrating it with the 5G-ready network. The development anticipates excellent voice call quality, as customers will now be able to make HD calls short of interruption. Now, Apple handlers will serve as ground zero for rollout. Pedison Mumbere reports.
As you know that, we have 11 sites were live in Kampala. We were testing 5G. When we launch 5G, there are two use cases right now we are looking at. One is if you have a 5G handset, you will experience very, very high-speed browsing. Second, we will also be looking at the home broadband segment, wherein using a CPE, the customer premise equipment, I can deliver extremely high speed broadband to the home, similar to what a fiber can offer. So these are the two big use cases. So customers, what should they do? If you want a good experience, you should have a 5G handset or a 5G CPE at home, which can get you a very high speed broadband at home.
Voice calls were still being held and managed on the 3G and 2G network. With the launch of VoLTE today, it means that an Airtel customer with a VoLTE-enabled device will be able to have their voice calls running on the 4G network. What does this mean for a Ugandan who is using VoLTE? It means that, as you're aware, normally when you're having an internet session, when your call comes through, the voice call was dropping to 3G and slowing down the internet session. So with the launch of VoLTE, a customer will be able to continue browsing while seamlessly connecting also on their voice call.
Now, elsewhere, the city MTAs have rebelled against the taxes. The Uganda Association of MTAs, well known for sanitation services in the country, has petitioned Parliament over predatory taxes from various government agencies, URA inclusive. Now, the challenge tax to their existence despite commendable service in the face of limited waste treatment plants and a general poor waste disposal crisis, concerns that the government failed to address. Samla Hanifa reports.
The pit emptying segment is one of the many in the service sector committed to delivering professional sanitation services across the country. The Association of Uganda MTAs, comprising of 40 companies, 408 individuals serving members, serving 3,500 households per month, has petitioned Parliament over the instructed tax system attracting numerous taxes as charges pour into from different government agencies. Poor waste disposal and limited treatment plants have also been put forward.
They are paying multiple expenses. They are paying to KCCA, they are paying to NEMA, different fees, they are paying to National Water and Sewerage Corporation, and then the vehicles that they use, cesspool vehicles, are also charged. We are wondering, why aren't you charging milk transportation vans, but then you charge cesspool vans? These are people that are helping us so much. The government is too poor to invest in this business.
As we are delivering the service which the government failed to deliver, because we've got, as the Honourable has said, we've got over 40 companies registered under the association. Again, we've got over 485 members within the association. These people are helping Ugandans clean their homes, to clean their septic tanks, and to clean the drainage systems, and also to give advices to institutions that are planning to come up with sanitation facilities across the country. And sometimes we go beyond the boundaries. When I talk about beyond boundaries, I mean beyond the boundaries of this country. Like we go to Congo and South Sudan, sometimes to Kenya.
Attention is also drawn to increasing requirements for companies interested in operating the MTR's business, involving application to the association, which in turn is recommended to 3 other bodies: National Water and Mineral Development, KCCA, and finally NEMA, that certifies the interest coupled with respective charges. This and URA's decision to consider the service is a commodity-based dealership is unwelcome.
Revenue Authority came up with a tax. It's called commercial goods tax, which imposed on us. And we're asking Uganda Revenue Authority. Actually, we rebelled. We went to Revenue Authority and asked them, which goods are we transporting that you are taxing over other taxes we're paying? So that's why we're here, to see that, because when we went there, Revenue said that we should come to the Parliament.
Uganda's urban planning inefficiencies have offered a burden which, according to the association, government has failed to address, as waste management, on-site reliance on pits and septics present big demand for MTR services and a conducive operational environment still contested.
In Uganda, the rapid population growth in the urban areas has greatly outpaced the ability of the urban authorities to provide adequate management of waste, especially fecal sludge. Number 4, about 90% of the population in the metropolitan area relies on on-site sanitation facilities, that is pit latrines and septic tanks.
As we are delivering the service which the government failed to deliver, because we've got, as the Honorable has said, we've got over 40 companies registered under the association. Again, we've got over 485 members within the association. These people are helping Ugandans to clean their homes, to clean their septic tanks, and to clean the drainage systems, and also to give advices to institutions that are planning to come up with sanitation facilities across the country. And sometimes we go beyond the boundaries. When I talk about beyond boundaries, I mean beyond the boundaries of this country. Like we go to Congo and South Sudan, sometimes to Kenya.
Is consolidation of the licenses and licensing. I hereby refer it to the Committee of Trade, Tourism and Industry, in line with Rule 30, Sub-Rule 5 of our Rules of Procedure.
With ground for resolution set forth by URA's recommendation for the matter to be addressed to Parliament, the Deputy Speaker decided to refer it to the Parliamentary Committee on Trade. Samlanifa, Ivan Tiwinkana, Smart 24 TV, Business Today.
Now elsewhere, the parish development model cash is still missing, as the troubled PDM has still been upheld in the current financial year, despite bitter reflections on implementations in the previous. In Kabale, disbursement of cash to beneficiaries in the municipal stadium has been highlighted by conflict, as many were unlisted. Now, PDM leadership has openly been faulted for ignoring stakeholders in the program. Norbert Ndiamhachi has details.
After recipients from Kabale municipality were shocked missing from the initial list, the Parish Development Model Fund payout in Kabale district was characterized by conflict and ambiguity at Kabale Municipal Stadium. Kabale district has been under scrutiny for its failure to distribute the allocated funds even 3 years after the program's launch. Do not dodge us. The president has given us money. Give us some cash so we can get to work, please. Hundreds of people had gathered at the stadium eagerly waiting for confirmation messages that they would benefit from the program on its first day of disbursement.
The district leadership and the municipality leadership, I thought that meeting was supposed to harmonize the operations of today. That's why you're finding with the district, they implemented all the resolutions that were passed in the meeting of yesterday. Now, up to now, the commercial officer of the municipality is not giving explanation why he submitted payment schedule to the banks late.
There were accusations of dissatisfaction in the audience as the guest of honor called the initial recipients on stage for the ceremonial launch. Due to irregularities in the exercise, resolvement, we find it troubling that no one has received money, even though we believed that people had got it. The Kabale Municipality Mayor, Ssonko Biamgisha, joined the locals in asking for an explanation for their absence from the scheme.
This is a sign of unpreparedness, a sign of not being serious, because at the time of launching, when you say I'm going to launch, you should be very ready. So this one has opened our eyes. Of course, it is embarrassing, but it's also something to learn from. We are very lucky that the minister didn't come, but if he had come, then this embarrassment would be too much. So, but I think this is a lesson. We should learn from our mistake and next time do better.
Authorities subsequently gave the concerned people instructions to follow up on the patent banks to make sure that their funds would be deposited. The event's inadequate planning was admitted by Nyakahuma and Biamgisha, who also blamed the district's municipalities and technical staff for the neglect. In response to the uncomfortable scenario, they expressed their disappointment. Andrew Barije, Nobat Ndiamuhachi, Smart 24, Business Today.
All right, now we head into a short commercial break, but we return with more Business Today, so stick around.